Today, in just under 4 minutes, you're going to learn everything there is to know about replacing the rear camera on your iPhone 5. There's 2 screws down at the bottom. They're called a pentalobe screw. You can look in the video description for parts and tools that you'll need to complete this project. Normally you can take a suction cup and pull up on the screen once those screws are out, and the screen should pop loose. But this suction cup is far too small to do the job, so I'm going to show you how to do another way. Take a metal pry tool or a razor blade and kind of slip it between the metal frame and the glass screen, and then pry up on the plastic part of the screen to pull it away from the frame. Don't pull up on the glass or you're going to end up breaking something, and the screens are pretty expensive, so be careful. Once the screen is unclamped from the sides, don't bend it past the 90-degree mark or else you'll rip the ribbon cables. Take out those 3 screws and then remove the metal plate. Pop up each of these 3 ribbon cables. They're kind of like Legos. Just lift them up and unclasp them, and the screen pulls away from the phone. And then there's 2 screws holding the battery cable in place. Undo those. And the best piece of advice I can give you is to make sure to stay organized. Keep the screws next to the holes on the brackets. You can also take a piece of paper and draw out or make a list of where all the parts go, because it gets pretty complicated once we get all the rest of the screws out. Anyway, the batteries are in there pretty tight. The glue tends to get harder with age, the sticky tape that they're taped down with. So the longer your battery's been in there, the harder it's going to be to get out. I just took my pry tool and kind of slid it between the back frame and the rest of the phone, and it popped the battery out. Undo this little ribbon cable up here at the top. This is for the power button and volume buttons. And then this right here is a bracket that holds the charging port in place. So undo that screw and then put the bracket next to it. Unclasp the ribbon cable for the charging port. It's kind of like the Legos that we were talking about before. And then for the cellular antenna, just unclasp that and lift it up. And then get those out of your way. And then there's 2 little ribbon cables that are still in our way for one of the screws that we have to undo. So lift this up. Put it somewhere where you're going to remember where it goes. And then there are 5 screws on the motherboard that you have to unscrew. And then there's 2 screws up here by the camera that we're going to be replacing. Grab that little bracket once you get the screws out and put that next to the screws that you just undid. And you can take out the SIM card. You can also make this one of your first steps, which I would recommend. Just put your little tool in there, or you can use a paper clip. And then these screws are super important. Don't forget to undo those. They're kind of grounding screws for the motherboard. Once you get those 2 screws undone, the motherboard comes loose from the frame, and then you can grab the Wi-Fi antenna wire cable and unclasp that from the back. And that frees up the motherboard for us to work on to get to the camera. Now here's the camera. There's 2 screws holding a bracket in place that keep the camera plugged into the motherboard. Once you get the screws out, lift up that little bracket and put it somewhere special. And then just unclip the camera from the motherboard. And that's pretty much it. Grab your new camera and then you can just slide that into place. You can see what the little connection looks like back there. All the parts and tools will be in the video description below. You can see me just kind of clip it into place back on the motherboard again. If you need any tools or parts, go ahead and click in the About section below in the video description, and I'll have links for those. Anyway, if you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments. Don't forget to like this video if it helped you, and don't forget to subscribe. If I helped you in any way, the best thing you can do for me is subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.